And welcome to Mountain View. Welcome also if you're joining us online, and if you're joining us on Catch Up too, you're very welcome here tonight for the first session of our third season of Mountain View Tech Talks. Just a few bits of housekeeping before we start, please. Note that there will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the session, but would you wait for the roving mic to come to you, because our online and catch-up guests would otherwise only hear the answer and not the question. And whilst that might be a good party game, it's actually not much fun if you're trying to work out the subject matter. So Lindsay will do that, and I'll come and host that time. We have a few housekeeping bits to remind you of. If you're using a hearing aid of any description, if you would switch it to the T position, we have an induction loop in the building. Would you now, if you haven't already done, please turn your mobile phones off or silent, so that you don't have any embarrassing moments in the session. And would you please just familiarise yourself with the nearest fire exit, the way you came in, and this door here. Wherever you exit the building in the event of an emergency, our muster point is the large car park, just a little bit back down the drive that you came in past one way or another. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Colin Tansley, who's MD of the Intelect Group here on the island. Colin is a former police officer, and he has had a lifelong career and passion for intelligence, investigations and risk management. But since 2010, through his company, the Intelect Group, Colin has worked with a diverse client base across the globe, providing products, skills, tools and technology to manage a range of risks. And he's also regularly called upon for insights into online investigative techniques, including threats posed by the dark web. Nominated as one of the top 10 due diligence service providers in the industry in 2019, and having previously worked at Warwick University and locally at University College of Man, we're honoured to be welcoming Colin to Mountain View to launch this third series of our Tech Talks with the title Data Breach That Would Never Happen to Me. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everybody. And hello to everybody online. Okay, so I've discovered that this has been some time since I've actually done any public speaking. It must be about 18 months because of the situation we find ourselves in. So I went into the wardrobe today and got the suit out and found out it shrunk. So it's absolutely nothing to do with the amount of food I've been eating whilst working at home. So, data breach, that would never happen to me. Well, we're going to talk about that and see has it happened to you. Before I start, has anybody been hacked? One, two. Would you know if you have been hacked? Three. Okay. Was it sort of email, text? Email's the most popular, but I'm going to take we are going to get to that, but I'm also going to look at other ways in which somebody can take your data. Is anybody here from a company? Have you got your own business? Okay. I'll try and sort of pitch it so we get both look at the personal and the company stuff. Right. So where we're going, I think it's important to understand what data breach actually is. What does that mean? I want to look at an overview of the threats. There's no way in 45 minutes an hour we can do everything, so I'm going to look at the most common ones. Because if we can, as Dave said, my background is policing. If we can concentrate on the big stuff, the volume stuff, we're going to reduce it in terms of prevention. I'm going to come at it from a very sort of crime prevention angle, and that will become apparent as we talk about it. How and why we get breached. One of the things I've been asked to talk about is social engineering. We'll talk a little bit about that. How we can get manipulated people. How to protect ourselves, and not going to be talking about it and then saying anything to you about how you might do better and what you can do, and also a bit about if it does happen, and it might, what you need to do. So the last thing to do is panic, because that's not going to get anywhere. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll have time for Q&A. And I know that people on YouTube, your questions are going to be wanted as well, so feel free to chip in. And there will be a little bit of audience participation. Okay. I don't be falling asleep, so I'll make it so you can interact with me. So what's a data breach? If you go onto Google and did your little search, it would come up with something like this in Wikipedia. So it's the intentional or unintentional release of secure or private confidential information from an untrusted environment. It's a pretty good description, don't you think? So if you've got personal information, if you've got confidential information in your business, you don't want that stuff getting out there in the wild because you don't know where it's going to go. And it's going to cause you all sorts of problems. So it's important we start thinking about protecting it. And the way I approach this tonight is not so much around, I'm not going to sort of go very techy on this. I'm going to approach it from a crime perspective because we need to understand this criminality. The villains have moved on to the internet as a playground. And we need to start thinking in the same way we do about other types of crime. I know the Isle of Man is a very sort of safe environment. We don't get many burglaries. Well, I'm aware of anyway. And thefts from cars, that sort of stuff across is known as volume crime. Well, the new volume crime is cybercrime. Okay, and it's everywhere. So we can no longer think as an island that we're okay because we're getting attacked all the time. And anecdotally, not much of this gets reported. It gets, well, we don't need to tell anybody, we'll keep it quiet, and I don't want my reputation as such. I get that, but it doesn't help us understand the crime really. So some recent data breaches, and these are not all electronic. August, T-Mobile, 40 million current and past customers had their sensitive information breached. So they got into the T-Mobile servers. And that data is now available on the dark web for sale. So the dark web's an area that you may not want to go. It's like the sort of dark streets of a seedy city, or the seedy parts of a city. And this is where the criminals tend to operate now because it's an anonymous sort of area really. So all that data is out there, and they're going to use that for identity theft. They're going to try and set up accounts on people's names. So data is really important to them. It's an asset, it's a commodity. Sorry. I've gone back to the start somehow. Right. So, I don't know if you read this, when the sort of rapid exit from Afghanistan, the embassy, the British embassy staff left contact details of local employees when they evacuated for the Taliban to sort of do whatever they wish to, and that is the most sort of deadly type of data breach as far as I'm concerned. So it's not just electronic, we can be careless with information. I've certainly been in offices around the island where company documents are strewn on the reception area. A lot of people have got cameras on the phone. September, again, this is another big one. The Gun Trader website, 110,000 of UK gun owners had their details released, helpfully, on a map. So this was posted up on the dark web. So now we've got this, criminals love guns, don't they? They use it to enforce. So now they've got the details of people who own all sorts of weapons. So again, another type of deadly data breach. And another type, and this is something we don't often think about. So you have people working for you. Occasionally people have to go, for whatever reason, you have to get rid of them. On that occasion, somebody got really angry and decided to destroy 21.3 gig of data. Now that is massive. So the customer data is gone because the employee gets really fed up. And it's caused immense damage to that company. So they're all slightly different types of breach. It's all data breach. It's not necessarily electronic breach. So 2021, so far, around 5 billion data records have been gone. They've been breached. So a data record would be something as simple as an email address. So a customer's email address. Business email compromise is on the rise. That means that somebody's got access to your email. So they know your password, they're able to log in, they're able to use your system. Okay? And what they then tend to do is they'll talk to the bank, they'll talk to customers, they'll pretend to be you. So that's very popular. Ransomware still remains the most significant threat. Ransomware means that you are going to go to your your system, and you're going to get a notice on your computer saying your files have now been locked. You've got to pay a sum of money to me, the criminal, not me, to a criminal gang in cryptocurrency. And the reason they use crypto is this anonymity association with it. And lots of people are paying. You know, that's in a way like funding criminality. It's almost like if you draw a parallel with money laundering. But some people will say, well, I need to do it, so that's an option. And I know of an individual not here, that was the data protection officer, and he bartered with the criminal gang, and he got it down from, it was like 50k down to 500 quid. But I'm not encouraging that, and just say that's just an example. So they want money, and people are paying sadly. This one's grown in popularity. We forget that our smartphones are actually computers. So you get an SMS, you click on it, that could get access to your email, your connections, your business network, all sorts of stuff. And the parcel one is very popular. That was going around the island a couple of months ago. So the effects of data breach then. Reputational damage. So you've been attacked. You can't get your data. People get to find out about it. The customers get a bit wary. They may vote with their feet. So you have that potential. Do you remember that? And what's the several companies are remembered for data breaches. It's the last thing you want. So you're going to have the potential for legal action. So there are customers taking action against companies that have had their data compromised. Okay, so you're effectively giving the ownership of your data to a company and saying, look after that for me, and they don't for whatever reason. So people are recognising that as I'm going to sue them, okay, because you said you're going to take care of it. So we have a legal responsibility, or we have a responsibility as a business to take care of people's data or take reasonable steps. How many people in here use encryption? Okay, is that a result of what happened? No. Okay. So encryption is relatively easy now. A lot of people sort of steer away from it. It's really complicated. It's not. So using encryption for email is dead easy now. But I encourage you, if you're sharing personal information by email, think about taking an encrypted solution. Data at rest as well as a slightly different one, but certainly email. So fines, Information Commissioner, you've got to notify. If you are found to be wanting, you may get fined as well, and that's going to affect your bottom line. And there's no doubt about it, there's a bit of personal trauma, and the people that have been breached will know this. It's not very nice, is it? Some years ago, I had my personal email address hacked. I won't say hacked, it was accessed by my former wife. But that feeling of somebody going through your personal stuff, it's not nice. And again, I equate it with burglary in a way. It's like somebody getting through. Has anybody been burgled on the island? Okay. So what's that feeling like when that happens? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Okay. So for the people on YouTube who may not be able to see the response, it was, the personal trauma associated with dealing with insurance companies, upheaval, all those sorts of things. It's the same in the cyber world. Thank you for that. So there's probably, I suppose, broadly three types, three reasons this will happen. So it can be accidental. The best example I can give you here, and you may have seen this yourself, somebody sends an email to a load of people, doesn't do BCC. So you then share with the whole, and this happened to me at a sports club in Yorkshire. They copied about 100 email addresses into and everybody saw it. So that was a breach. So it does happen accidentally. You could argue that was negligent. I suppose it depends. You'd probably have to put that in the context of the person that did it. If it's an employee that's never been trained, didn't know, then it's on you actually. because you've got the responsibility for making sure they know how to handle information. And deliberate. And the example I gave you earlier about the employee who destroyed 21.3 gigabyte data. So there will be people that will do this. And there will be people that want, particularly I think in offshore jurisdictions, we often think about cyber criminals. Let's not forget, there are people out there that want to do damage to the reputation of the island because it makes a good story. Paradise Papers, Panama Papers. So they will get into buildings to try and pretend to be people with the aim of getting a good story. So that does happen. It's not just here. So, Tales from the TARDIS. I've called it that because I'm going to go back in time. So we all know what the TARDIS is, don't we? Doctor Who. I joined the police longer than I care to remember. So 81 when I joined West Yorkshire Police. So at the time, very different world. If we wanted to investigate, we went and spoke to people. Knocked on doors, felt people's collars, all that sort of stuff. Not Dixon or Doc Green quite enough, but it was very different. I investigate now, but I do it from the benefit, from the comfort of my chair and a screen. That's how I do my investigations now. But I'm going to just talk to you a bit about a job from Cleveland. I spent 20 years in West Yorkshire Police, and then I transferred to a smaller force. Prior to going to that force, I've been working on an intelligence project, and it involved analysis and understanding crime and trying to do a bit better in terms of deployment of resources and results. So I won that particular project for some reason. I went to Cleveland and they found out about that, and I did a stint as a DI in Middlesbrough, and then I got transferred to headquarters to implement a new intelligence model. So I'm working away in the office one day and the boss comes in, superintendent says, in my office now. I thought, oh, what have I done this time? Says, right, we've got a problem. We've got distraction burglaries are causing us a massive issue. Distraction burglary was where the criminals target elderly people. Okay. We're suffering with distraction burglaries. There's a gang doing it, or several gangs. Our detection rate is appalling. 3%. So it's your job to sort it out. So poison chalice or what? Anyway, took a good look at it, and luckily I was able to sort of draw upon the intelligence expertise and then bring in some really good people, and we came up with a plan. We started looking at it in different ways. So the correlation, the reason I mention this is because I think that we have here, if you don't understand or you're put off by cyber security, because these fancy words often get used, but let's think about criminality. You're vulnerable, you're a vulnerable victim, and that's what they were preying on, the vulnerability of victims. They were conning them to get in. They were sort of putting on uniforms, pretending to be from the water board, targeting particular an age group of people because they had little knowledge, and they're also preying on people's trust. Because the elderly are a pretty trusting group, aren't they? And certainly, going back 20 years ago, they'd grown up in an age where trust was normal. You just, crime, what's all that about? So we set up something called Operation Strongbow. That was in June 2003. And because we began to understand the problem, and we decided to focus on victims, over a 6-month period, we actually increased the detection rate to 36%. That was a minor thing really for me, because what I did see is we were protecting a vulnerable group, and we made massive inroads, to such an extent that it made the papers. We had some major success. We even had Jack Charlton got on board. This was after I left, actually, and that project then got taken up across the region. And I looked the other day, and sort of 15 years on, it was still going. So clearly we're doing something right, and that is really just about using, looking at information in a different way. And one of the things we did was use something called routine activity theory. Anybody heard of this? Or the RAT? What it says is, if you look at crime, and crime's got 3 elements broadly: victims, criminals, location. If you remove any one of those elements out of the triangle, the crime can't happen. So what we did, we focused here. We did that as well, because we arrested quite a few of them. So we did stuff around location in terms of cameras, and we got we got them locks on the doors and chains and all that sort of stuff, so that was the location. But we did a lot of time about education, not just the victims, but people that were interacting with the elderly. Overlay now the internet with this. Some criminologists will say this ain't going to work because you can't do anything about the location, it's too big. Yes, you can. That's our location. You've got a location on your phone in terms of the internet. We educate people. Leave that stuff to the cops, okay? We don't need to concern ourselves. But if we think in this way and start educating people and start thinking about how we interact with that environment, we're going to make it so much harder for them. And that's the bit I sort of come in on, that we need to start thinking about reduction and prevention. We're not going to stop them, but we can make it harder for them. Does that make sense? So that would do it. Preying on the trust. A lack of understanding by the victim, and a real susceptibility to being conned. They didn't really get it. If somebody turns up in a waterboard uniform, they've got a white van outside, they didn't see fit to question it. But it was a significant loss. Some of these people had their life savings because they stored cash under the mattress, jewellery, and all those things apply in terms of cybercrime as well, because we're vulnerable if we don't understand. Okay? So we're going to do a bit of audience participation then, and talk about trust, because I just spoke about that in terms of victims. So what we're going to do is, I appreciate the people online can't participate, but I'm assuming they could sort of interact if they want. So I'm going to put up we're going to talk about this, the trustometer. I'm going to show you a series of images. Don't concern yourself so much about the image, concern yourself about what I say about that person and who it is. And I wanted you to sort of, I'm going to go high, medium or low, and I'll get you to put up your hand. Okay? All right? All good with that? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Right, okay. Granny, high, medium or low trust? So high. Good. Medium. Who's going to go low for Granny? Come on. Oh. Right, there must be a story associated with that. We won't go there. Most people would see their elderly grandparents as trustworthy and high trust. Okay? Car salesman. High trust. Anybody online? Any car salesman online? Medium? Okay. You obviously have a relation in the industry. Low? Okay, and I get that. What's that all about then? Where's this coming from? Yeah, I think there's a bit about experience maybe, or the fear of being conned out of a load of money when you realise you could have got the car cheaper. We're all different, remember, we've all got different experiences. Beggar. So you go to Liverpool or Manchester. High. Medium. Okay. Low. Because we operate in stereotypes. Okay. I was in the forces before I joined the police, and I know there are veterans on the street. It doesn't make them a bad person, but we are programmed that person is bad. And sometimes we've got to take a breath and think about it. I'm not saying there aren't any bad people. I'm just saying sometimes we get stereotypical sort of stuff can take over. I'm going to say this is a head teacher, all right? Because he looks like a teacher. Okay, I've got any teachers in the room? High. Okay. Medium. The kids there, so I expect that would be low. Low. Okay. And again, so different. Again, we'll all have different experiences. I'm chancing it with the next one. Police officer. High. Okay. Medium. Low. Have you had a ticket recently? And again, a little bit about this is about we're sort of brought up to respect authority, and that's inbred into us. And there are people who've had bad experiences with police. I've met some of them, but generally speaking, for the people we've mentioned, that was about what I expected, to be honest. All right. So, what about text messages then? Have a look at this one. Quickly. Hi. Hi, trust. Do you even think about trust when you look at these things? We don't, do we? It must have come from somebody. But we just see it on the phone and we're into this, got to respond, bump. Oh, parcel. That's for me. And then you think, no, actually, I haven't ordered anything. But we respond to it because I think it's something that is like an incentive. Okay, so they're preying on us again. This is one of them that went round the island. Okay. We all have a prize, don't we? Right, cough up then. How many people scan the QR code? Right, good. I've got a bit of bad news for you. There's no prize. Sorry. But this is the sort of thing, the incentives that are given to us, they're like little cues, prize, free, parcel, that we get preyed upon. Okay? So don't worry, there's nothing bad in this. I use this as an example. All it will do, you take to my website. So you've done me a favour because I now get a bit of a click and I get sort of up in the ratings. So thank you for that. But it's perfectly possible that could take you to a site and you're asked to put in some personal information. It could launch malicious code. It could inject malware. Most often it's going to be, please enter your details. And I think the earlier example of the text, you were asked to put in your name, your date of birth, address for delivery of the parcel which never arrived. So it's all about grabbing your information. Remember, they want that. Okay, so social engineering. We spoke about social engineering. Authority. So I'm stood here in a suit, and if I'm doing presenting, it's something I do because for me, I feel more comfortable doing it that way. If I turned up in a t-shirt and pair of shorts, would you take much notice of me? No, so there's a bit of a uniform that goes with it, I think, sometimes when you're doing this sort of stuff. So they'll often prey on urgency. You need to do this now. We're here. We've got to sort this out. And what they'll do is they will, instead of saying it's a loss, it's going to be a gain. You're going to get something if you do this. So, and again, we tune into it because, I'm going to get something with this. Oh, prize. Like the QR code. Did anybody see it and think differently? Did anybody see? Okay, what did you think?
I thought it seemed just like a little bit of a kind of cheap shot at a presentation like this.
Thanks.
For a quarter of a second I thought, oh yeah. And then something cut in and I thought, yeah. I'm not.
Good. And what he's saying, and the gentleman was saying, is that he thought it was a bit of a con, really, and he didn't think you were going to get anything from it. So is that based on your experience of what happened to you?
Not that incident.
Right, okay. But what we've got to get into is questioning when we see this stuff. And I just thought, if you see a QR code and you're asked to scan it, do you know where it's going? There's nothing you can make out from that. It could go anywhere. When we see text, question it. When we see emails coming into your inbox we don't recognise, stop. Take 30 seconds to look at it. And I'm going to cover one or two of that. Somebody needing help? That's another common one. Can you help me now? I haven't got it with me, but there's a video where a girl rings up a mobile phone company and says she's in distress and the baby's crying in the background. That's a recording. And she manages to get the operator to hand over details on the basis that she's in distress. So All these things social engineers will do. There are people that are trained to do it. There are also people that do it for good, if you like, so they'll test company defences in different ways. There's all sorts of little tricks they will do. And it's all about appealing to our better nature, because we are hardwired as human beings to trust. That's the way we are, most of us. I've had it kicked out of me after 30 years in the place, to be honest. So trust is a big one for me. Okay. So I think what we're going to do now is a short video. Have a look at this. I'd ask you to think, could it happen to you?
What do you think of when I say the word hacker? Some creepy dude in a basement? Well, that's a misconception. What if I told you there's a class of hackers who don't just have social skills, they have more social intelligence than anyone you'll ever meet? David Kennedy is one of them. He's what's known as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1, spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on his computer right now.
You were able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much a downfall of the entire company.
In this case, the company was paying David to hack them and see if their employees would fall for it. They did. To show you this demo, we agreed not to use the company's name. Kennedy hacks to protect. He's part of a growing number of hackers using this skill for good. Josh Corman's one of them too. He started a group to help bridge the gap between hackers and big companies.
Hacking is a form.
So that piece isn't really relevant to what we're talking about. It's a guy that does this, but I think, what did you make of that? Could it happen? I can see it happening a lot, you see the distressed element, I need a bit of help, preying on somebody's better nature, on the phone, not questioning anything. What would have happened had the operator started asking questions? Maybe the call had been terminated. So again, it's just the way it's human, and we get manipulated. So they call it social engineering. It's a very fancy term. It's a con. You're being deceived, and we can be deceived in lots of different ways. But that's an easy way in, and that's what they will do. And when people say, "I've no idea they got into my company," I really don't know. Have you had any funny phone calls? Well, maybe. Have you had any text messages? Yeah. Are you accessing your email from home? Oh yeah, it's a company network, but I go on the iPad. There's all sorts of different ways. If I just press without advance to the next. Brilliant, thank you. So, in my bag, here I've got I'm not a techie, right? I can use stuff. I'm not the sort of person that does penetration tests personally. I know what it does, but that's not for me. I prefer the more sort of conventional stuff, aided by technology. What's in my bag? What's going to get me into your premises? Let's say you're the owner of a CSP. What's in here? You see this on YouTube? I'll disclose it in a minute. Feel free to answer on YouTube as well. Crowbar? Good one, but no. Disguise? What sort of disguise? That's not a bad one. Let's have a look, shall we? Right, so this will almost guarantee you getting in anywhere. The high-vis jackets, guaranteed to get you past anybody. Oh, health and safety check, mate. I've got to check your air conditioning unit. Even better, if you come with one of these. They look really professional then, don't you? But you must carry a clipboard, that's essential, okay? But with the clipboard, somebody may have something like a USB stick, and whilst on your premises, they could go into a machine and they could suck data out, okay? I've even got here, I probably shouldn't still have it, but I have, my old police warrant card. Now, if I pitched up at a building and said, police, I've got to come in, you need me to let me in, nobody's going to look at that. If they looked at it, they'd say, well, I had hair then. It's out of date, but has anybody sort of been confronted by a plainclothes police officer with a warrant card? No, I guarantee nobody ever looks at it. They just look at it and think, it's a cop. That's what happens. But why are we not checking this stuff? Authority. We've been almost brainwashed. Okay. So good. So quickly, let's have a look at. I'm running a bit behind, but in terms of business damage cost, the average cost of a data breach, £115 for each record, that is. Okay, so how many records have you got in your business? Count a record as an email address, an address, date of birth, lots. So the average overall cost is around 211,000. You are going to see all sorts of different figures if you look on Google about data breach. And that's the big one, around 280 days to identify and contain it. So they could be sat there now on your systems. So there's also this thinking that it's just happening to big businesses. In actual fact, the biggest target is small businesses because you haven't necessarily got the protection of a small business. So almost a third of data breaches of 2020 involve small businesses, and I think there's an element of COVID with that as well. 60% of SMB think their businesses aren't a likely target, so it's not going to happen to me. We need to get out of that mindset as well. Half of businesses and, of course, the charities report having cybersecurity breaches. They don't care that you're a charity. They're after money and data, so they have no scruples. And the part of it, I think, is this sort of invisible enemy thing. We don't know who we're dealing with. We don't see them. It's not like a broken window left behind, or your property been stolen out of the car or your house. It's data. So I'm often asked, what am I going to see if there's a cyber attack? What do I expect to see? Well, this slide, to sum it up. You're not going to see anything when they're attacking you, and that's part of the problem. You don't know. So all you can do is defend to the best of your abilities and make sure you've got a sort of robust layer of defence in place. And that needs to be multi-layered. So I'm quickly going to cover phishing emails. This always comes up. Phishing emails, as it was explained to me many years ago by a guy in Malta who was talking with an academic, it's just another form of social engineering, but it's delivered electronically. And it's the most popular means of getting us done over. So if we can look at this and understand it a bit better, we're going to lower the chance of getting phished, or whatever you want to call it. So be on the lookout for things like sense of urgency. They want you to do something quickly. Come on, it's a panic. And it may be on a Monday morning when you're sort of less alert. It might be on a Friday afternoon when you're thinking, I'm off to the pub, or I'm off to go for a glass of wine, I'm off for it's the weekend. Look out for words like payment, invoice, manage, confidential. So if you see something confidential in your email box, what are you likely to do? Ooh, I'll have a nosy at that. Yeah. It'll have an attachment most of the time, or it'll have something to click on, like a link. So the most popular ones are invoices, parking tickets, that sort of stuff. So they want you to click on something. When you click on that, it's going to launch something into your system, maybe even silently. And it might lock your data down the next day. It might be a piece of malicious software that does something. It could be any sort. Just avoid clicking on this stuff. And this is an example. This came to me. Good morning. I would like a quote for the attached file. Great. What are we talking about? Please also quote ASP, as this is top urgent. That's the sort of language used all the time, isn't it? Top urgent. So often the grammar's a little bit out of sync. But you can see there's 2 documents they want me to click on. Thanks in advance. Best regards, Roy. And the font is slightly out there as well. And again, we'll put his name there. So Roy. Now what you can do is you can look at the address if you're careful. And I did. And Roy, this was an email alias. You can actually mask the actual address. It was I've obscured the name, but it's at howash.com. So I looked at Howash, the domain. It was a place that sold car wash, you know, the spray stuff. Why would they be contacting me? So again, you've got a question, where's this from? So there's some obvious giveaways most of the time. So I'd encourage you to look at the sender email address. If you hover over it on most email clients, it will reveal the actual email address. It's dead easy to put an email alias in. You can put somebody's name in, but behind that is a different domain altogether. Don't open the attachment just to be nosy or just check. Let's have a look. It should be all right. It won't be all right. Check the spelling and grammar. And also things like the icons. They're often a little bit not right. If it doesn't look right, don't open it. Don't click. What's the worst that's going to happen? You don't open an email. What's going to happen? You're going to get an angry customer on the phone saying, why didn't you open that email? Or somebody, but what's the best? You can put that right. You can't put a ransomware attack right easily, can you? Yeah. So that's a way of doing it. So this one was supposed to be from NatWest. If you look, it says postmaster at visualradioarts.co.uk. So we missed you on internet banking. Your account has expired due to inactivity. So again, it's this, you need to sort this out. They want you to respond. And then we've got the reactivate my account, which will be malicious. The NatWest team. If you're going to get something like that, it's going to be addressed to you as an individual. So avoid. Don't open, don't click. Okay, that's the best advice I can give you with this stuff. Just ignore it. So I'm just going to quickly talk about ways you can defend yourself and things to be thinking about, some takeaways for you. Password. The password. You will never get any security professional to agree about passwords. You've got to do what works for you, but make it, I always say, long and strong. Some people would say 3 words. Some would say a combination of numbers, letters, characters, etc. I personally use a password manager because I'm getting old. I can't remember all these passwords. But what it does, it generates strong passwords as well. And it locks your passwords encrypted in the cloud. Now, you might say, well, is that safe? Well, let me tell you, it's safer than me writing it down anyway because I'm bound to lose it. So a password manager, all you've got to do is remember one long, strong password. Make that really long, mix it up, but make sure you remember it. And then everything else is done for you. It'll even, when you go to a site such as your Facebook account, it'll pre-populate the fields for you. So you don't have to remember anything. It's easy. Okay, anybody use password manager? Work? Yeah. It's easy. It's about making your life easier as well. Please back up your data. The easiest way to get out of a ransomware attack is having a copy of your data. Okay, and there is something to be said for having a backup of a backup, and having what some would put your drive into cold storage, so it's not connected to the internet. So do your copy, unplug it, put it somewhere safe. Then if the worst happens, you can get back online. Okay, look at your critical data, see what you need to function. Make sure you get a backup of it. Do your updates. I know they're a pain. I had to switch off my Mac for 30 minutes this morning. But they are patching a vulnerability. So when they're telling you there's an update, invariably it's a security fix. So they found something wrong. They're patching it and putting it right. They want you to just update your system. And it can be a pain, but please do it, because the longer you leave it, the more vulnerable you are. Okay? So it doesn't, if you're offline for a few minutes, does it matter? Education is important. If you've got employees that don't understand this stuff, don't be blaming them if they make a mistake. Okay? We wouldn't put people in cars if they don't pass a test. We don't do that, do we? But what we do is we sit people behind computers, never having trained them, and saying, you've got access to all my stuff. You can send emails. You can look after my data. But we don't educate them most of the time. There's basic information security stuff. 2FA, this is one of the things I would always recommend. Two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. If I want to log into any of my accounts now, I have to go to my phone, and a 6-figure code has to be entered into it's like another check, it's like a double lock basically. And it's dead easy to do. You can get the Google Authenticator, you can get the LastPass Authenticator, Authy, and Microsoft, they've all got them. You think it's hard, it's not. It's quite easy to set up. It's just an additional step. It's making sure that you are the right person that's got authority to enter that account. Okay? And invariably, I would always say put it on your phone and don't use the text messages, because somebody can actually spoof, as you've seen. They could take over your mobile number and get access to your account. So please do 2FA. Dark web stuff, you can use this site, Have I Been Pawned? You can search on there with your email address, I think your phone number now, and it will tell you if you've been breached, if your email address has been breached. So what that means is somebody's got access to it. So if you do find that out, just change your password and make sure you've then got 2FA. Okay, so that's been around a while now. Anybody used this before? Yeah, good. Did you find it had been breached? Right, good. Occasionally you get old accounts that, it's the Files FM I think I've got, and I found that had been breached. I haven't used it for 20 years. There'll be nothing in there. And I'm going to leave you with a couple of slides. As easy as ABC. I'm not talking about the alphabet. For those of you from a financial services background, I'm not talking about anti-bribery corruption. I'm talking about an old sort of police adage that I remember from when I was very young to being a detective. Assume nothing. Believe nobody. Check everything. That applies in this world, yeah? And if you just take 30 seconds to think about what's going to happen, am I confident this is from that sender? Because if they want to get into your money, they're going to use all sorts of different methods. And if it does happen, and it might, don't panic. That's the worst thing you can do. Okay, what's happened has happened. I would always sort of advocate establish what's happened. That's the most important thing. The why can wait later on. If somebody's made a mistake, don't just deal with that later on. Don't sort of start disciplinary proceedings without something, you've got to deal with what's in front of you. And remember, you have a duty to notify. Okay? So if you have a data breach, you've got to contact the Information Commissioner. You should also think about contacting your customers and letting them know as well. All right. Okay. Finally, we do have a risk assessment system that we offer guided cyber risk assessments. They're easy to use. You can do it yourself, or we can guide you through it. That's the website. That's my email address. If you ever want to get in touch, you've got a problem or a question, feel free. You will find me on LinkedIn under my real name. Facebook is Intellect Group. That's our Facebook page, and I do try and put stuff up there. We do little videos every week about some of the threats, and Business Cyber Bites is like a document. You'll find me on Twitter as well. I do a bit of moaning on there because I'm getting old and I just moan a bit, according to my wife anyway. And Instagram, I put fancy pictures on as well. So I'm all over social media to an extent, but that's the way it is in this world now, isn't it? If you want a business, you've got to be out there. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's been helpful for everybody that's watching. We can do some questions now, if that's all right.
Thanks very much, Colin. For those watching online, please use the YouTube chat feature if you've got questions for Colin, and one of my colleagues will read that out. if anyone has a question, would you just raise your hand so that Lindsay can bring a mic to you so that those viewing online or on catch-up will be able to hear the question.
Okay, cheers. Yeah, it's just a very quick one. You're saying about one of the most important things to protect against it is to back up your software and back up your data. Is there a risk also to back up the problem? You say these things can lie dormant in your systems.
Possibly. Yeah.
Is there a way to protect against that? Or
I would always sort of, you can, with the antivirus, you can scan the drive and it should highlight anything they know about. And that's the antivirus is good, but it's only as good as the most recent update. So yeah, I would always say you've got to do some scanning with it as well, make sure it's as clean as you can possibly make it. Nothing we do is ever going to be 100%. But if you are doing these sorts of things, you're going to lower the chance of you, if you are a victim, you're going to be able to recover more quickly, and you're going to lower the risk of you being targeted as well. Is that right?
that's great, thanks.
Yeah. We have one on from our online audience.
Is it somebody that knows me?
Is there a particular age group which tend to not be quite as savvy with their online security?
That's a good question. I think people of a certain age, the older people have not grown up with devices. I mean, I'd hate to think that my dad, if I put him in, he's 80 odd, if I put him in front of an iPhone, what he'd do, he wouldn't have a clue. But the other thing I would say is that kids are getting, their access to devices, they're getting younger. I mean, my grandson's got an iPhone. There's no way on this earth he knows about the security aspects of that, and hopefully he's controlled to an extent by his parents. But kids have grown up with functionality. They haven't grown up in the world of security, and they're two different things. So I think the youngsters are prone to this, and particularly on social media. They're drawn into sort of groups and chats. These secure channels as well, Telegram. Instagram is known. Instagram is very popular with the youngsters, and again, that can be used as a means of sort of getting trust for all sorts of different reasons. So I don't think it's a particular demographic. I would probably say the two groups most at risk are sort of up to 17, 18, and 55 plus. But that will be wind in the wind. But we shouldn't be complacent. We're all at risk.
Any more questions from the audience? Any more questions online?
No,
Gosh, you're quiet.
I've done well, haven't
I think you've terrified us all. we'll never trust anyone
I? In the
ever
nicest
again.
possible way.
So thank you, Colin,
No, thank
for
you.
a
Yeah,
great
thank you very much.
presentation. You've made us think a lot, particularly just reinforce the advice to think, to investigate if you're not sure, to seek advice, those of us who have technical support within our organisations or school or otherwise. If you're not sure, ask. It's easy to ask twice and then regret not at all. Yeah. Again, thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
And for all those who've signed up to be here or to be online, you will receive a feedback form which will help us a lot to form future events, and that will go out via email to you. Please do take the time to fill it in for us. And it will also have details on how to sign up for the next Tech Talk, and with the link to access both this talk and the previous library. So please do respond. Our next talk is on Thursday the 14th of August, and it's another of October, since we can't go back in time, our TARDIS is packed in. It's called The Future of Man, Man as in the island of Man. What does it mean for you and your business? It's presented by Kristen MacDonald, who's the Chief Technology Officer of Pushologies Limited. She's also Vice Chair of Isle of Man Chamber of Commerce. And she'll be talking to us about what it means to seek to improve the economic vitality through initiatives which focus on the critical priorities of the local business community. Kristen monitors trends and developments both locally and globally, identifying challenges that we're all going to face in the coming years, and is able to suggest not only the solutions, but opportunities for business and the local community alike. And I'm told, because this was written for me, that I am quite excited by the prospect of driverless cars at Mountain View, but I'm not quite sure about that. Thanks all for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed this evening. You've certainly got something to think about. Please do join us in just a few weeks' time for the next evening. Thank you, and thank you again, Colin. Can I just finally, on your behalf, thank our technical team. Making all this stuff work and the sound come out of the right places is no small feat. It's quite daunting. I have been in those sessions when the tech takes over, and it didn't tonight, so isn't that wonderful? And of course to Lindsay, who's worked really hard both before this event and throughout to ensure that everything is together. Our properties team and everyone who has helped in any way. Thank you. Good night.